The following is a taped lecture by David Mayo. It is produced by the Advanced Ability Center in Santa Barbara, California, on December 4th, 1983. The Advanced Ability Center is located at 1280 Coast Village Circle, Santa Barbara, California, 93108. In the summer of 1983, David Mayo sent out an open letter to all Scientologists. In this letter he stated, quote, "In April 1982, I received a long and detailed letter from LRH. It assigned me the full responsibility for the tech and for his technical hats for the next 20 to 25 years." Unquote. One verification of this assignment by LRH of the tech hats to David Mayo was made by two RTC personnel, Kevin True and Neil O'Reilly, during an interview in November of 1983.
Yeah, he does have a tech hat. LRH gave him that for the next 20 years or whatever, something like that. In writing, that does exist. That's a fact. It did have.
In the interests of maintaining the purity of the tech, David Mayo delivered the following lecture.
This is mainly on the subject of the quality of tech and standardness of tech and results. Today I'm going to be talking about standard tech. In the open letter that I wrote in July of this year, I mentioned my concern for the purity and standardness of the tech. And I also mentioned in there that there have been instances of what appears to be a corruption of the tech. I've had some inquiries from people as to what that was, or what I was referring to there, and I thought I'd amplify on some of those with some fairly recent examples. As you know, I used to be on the post of Senior CS International for a few years, and up until over a year ago. And one of the main purposes of that post was to ensure the high standards and high quality of the tech. There were some things which occurred which made it difficult to continue doing that at the time. And without going into those things particularly very much here, apart from one of them, which is the subject of how issues are written, HCOBs and issues. And you've probably seen various HCOBs or PLs that have come out over L. Ron Hubbard's name, and at other times you've seen issues that have come out as assisted by somebody. One of the things that I used to feel very strongly about at the time was that I felt that if I or somebody else was ordered to write an HCOB by LRH, that it should state assisted by and who it was assisted by at the bottom of it. In other words, I felt that an issue should state who wrote it. In other words, if it was written by LRH, it should state so, and if it was written by somebody else, it should state that. Doesn't mean that it's not valid, but I feel that the correct authorship should be assigned to these things as a matter of ethics and as a matter of principle. So, anyway, there have been some issues that have come out recently which I thought I should comment on. I've noticed that there's been a change, and I don't know how many people are familiar with the initials at the end of an issue. This one, for example, at the bottom of it, it is LRH PM and then the typist's initials. And from my experience, I would assume that would be, the PM would probably stand for somebody called Phoebe Maurer, although the issue doesn't say assisted by. Whereas I feel that they should say assisted by or as written by or something else. Anyway, there have been some issues about the grade chart that have come out. And over the years, from 1978 on up to PT, there have been some changes in the grade chart. These started with the announcement of people going clear on Ned and the subject of Dianetic Clear. With all of these things, there is an immediate rush of people who are, say, what we could call a backlog, people who were Dianetic Clear and attested to it at the time or soon thereafter. And after the initial backlog or wave of these people was caught up, something that I began to notice was what I can simply call false attests. A large number of people were being sent to attest to Clear who hadn't in fact made Clear. And unfortunately, some of these people then went on up onto OT levels and had a hard time on OT levels, or did the OT levels without them biting, as we say, by which is meant without them running successfully and without the person making the gains that they would expect to get out of the OT levels. Now, this brings us to what I consider to be a very important thing, which is the purpose of auditing. And so let's just take a quick look at what the purpose of auditing is. First, by looking at maybe what it isn't. The purpose of auditing isn't so that one can get a piece of paper, obviously. And it isn't so that one can have different numbers assigned to one. I myself, and I'm sure everybody here did too, wanted to be able to make gains in life and livingness, wanted to become more able, wanted to improve my memory, wanted to raise my intelligence, wanted to improve my personality, wanted to be able to get along better with people, and, of course, wanted to attain what we could call theta abilities, wanted to be more able as a being or as a spiritual being. These are the things that are the actual gains that a person can make. It's not a matter of significances or statuses or numbers or anything like that. Now, over the years, there have been several times when the real purpose of auditing has been set aside for one reason or another, and we've had what has been called a quickie era. In other words, people have very rapidly gone up through grades or levels without making the gains. Each time that's happened, each time there's been a wave of that, it's resulted in people reaching a higher level on the grade chart than what they've actually attained. And there have invariably been a large number of people dissatisfied about lack of results. And I'm sure you've seen lots of examples of what people have referred to as, quote, OTs who can't communicate, or a quote OT who still has problems, and so on. And this I consider to be a very disastrous thing to occur, both for the person himself, because he's been cheated out of the gains that he should have made, and also as an example to others. Anyway, since, around about 79 on forward, there have been various waves of clearer tests, some of which were valid and some of which were not valid. There was an HCOB in which it was the subject of natural clear was first introduced in 79. And although that issue said that they were very, very rare, within a few months there were hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people attesting to it. My viewpoint on that is that it wouldn't matter a bit to me, and I wouldn't mind at all, if each of these people was a natural clear, or if there were hundreds of them, or thousands of them, or if there were none of them. It wouldn't really matter. What does matter is if these people had a reactive mind and came to get auditing to handle that reactive mind and to get free of it and to be able to improve their abilities. And then if somebody misled them into thinking they were a natural clear when they weren't, and then they skipped the processes that would have handled the things that they needed handled and that would have given them the gains, then they would have been cheated out of what they should have got. Plus, it makes the whole subject appear unworkable to others because they look at somebody, get a few sessions, suddenly attesting to this and that, next thing they're an OT3, and it can be quite a bad example to other people if the person doesn't have the abilities he should have. Some of the most important and practical abilities are those which occur very early on the grade chart, such as the ability to be able to communicate freely, the ability to be able to handle problems, and so on. Those are very important abilities. If they're not in, the person doesn't make it on the higher levels. So, there's an earlier time when this occurred, in the late 60s and early 70s, and this is what LRH said about it on 21 June 1970 in an HCOB called Superficial Actions. He says there is a point where speed is simply a cover for a cheap, worthless product. And he goes on to give an example of somebody saying, yes, but we sell result. If we can get 200 PCs done in 100 auditing minutes, we would make £18,233 clear profit. He goes on in the HCOB to say, well, the cruel answer to that was when orgs began to do that on lower grades, they didn't attain the result on the PC and stats went down. Quickie grades, instead of making fortunes for one and all, crashed the whole Scientology network, because quickie results are lazy and dishonest. Let's just face up to the facts of life. Selling out the integrity of the subject for a buck wrecks the subject. And again, another reference, on the 26th of August 1970, in the HCOB Incomplete Cases, he says, quickie grades left us with a totality of incomplete cases. You look over a folder and you see the PC at OT4, in quotes. The folder is thick, he's had lots of auditing, he has aches and pains and problems and makes people wrong. Now, there's an SOED number 2379 International dated 5 November 1983, which was written by Services Exec International and Senior CS International. I want to read you a statement out of this. At the lower levels of the bridge, introductory services, the routes onto the bridge, grade 0 to 4, NED, right up to clear, the route is very, very fast. And looking at the chart, you can see that the distance from the first services up to clear is a short one too. And this issue is entitled Questions and Answers on the New Grade Chart. From my way of thinking, and as I understand that, I feel that that will be interpreted to mean what it says, which is it's very, very fast up through grade 0 to 4 and NED and clear. And unfortunately, I think it would be too bad if people didn't make their grades. There's another issue that came out around the same date on the 2nd of October 1983, and it's an HCOB and the writer's initials are PM. And it states here, in the instance of someone who did not make lower levels before OT1, yet started on the OT levels anyway, called a bypassed case, the person after OT3 could be put back to complete some lower action that he did not honestly attain. This would only be done at an AO. And then it says it is very important that a PC be fully prepared with the purification rundown objectives and any other needed drug handling steps, lower grades and any other needed lower grade chart actions before he goes on to NED and goes clear. So it says it's very important that the person gets these actions, but at the same time we have this questions and answers on the new grade chart that says it's very, very quick. So I feel that that is the beginning of a wave of a new compromise of technical integrity, and that's why I'm mentioning it today. All too often we've seen people who have been OT3 or OT7 in name only and couldn't handle their communication, their problems, went around committing overts and dramatizing ARC breaks and service facsimiles and so on. And I feel that we should put an end to that sort of thing. And this is part of the reason why I feel I'm here where I am now and doing what I'm doing, which is in the hopes of maintaining technical integrity. This same SOED, I'll call it Q&A on the new grade chart for short, questions and answers. It has some other things in it which I feel are relevant. It says, when will the new OT levels above new OT7 be released? And that's the Q and the A. These levels will be released when every org on the planet has reached the size of Old St. Hill. Anyway, now on a more serious note, I'm sure you all know that things can be changed by shifting definitions of words. This is, I want to quote you something out of a reference here. This is an HCO bulletin of 23 October 1983, and it is issued over L. Ron Hubbard's name, and whether it was written by him or not is not something that I could comment on. But at the beginning of it, or early in it, in the fourth paragraph, it says, the definition of a real overt, something contrary to the mores of a group. And then it goes on to talk about overts contrary to the mores of the group and withholds of having done them. And then it says, the auditor technically is not interested, in capitals, in confidences or overts against a group's enemies or withholds thereof. He's looking for overts against the group as above and the withholding of having committed them by omit or commit. Anyway, I feel that that's quite important as far as the maintaining the purity and standardness of the tech is concerned. In the tech dictionary, the definitions, and there are three of them here for an overt. One, an overt act is not just injuring someone or something. An overt act is an act of omission or commission which does the least good for the least number of dynamics or the most harm to the greatest number of dynamics. Definition number two, an intentionally committed harmful act committed in an effort to resolve a problem. Number three, that thing which you do which you aren't willing to have happen to you. And as far as I'm concerned, those are the definitions or the understanding of overt as I've known them, and I'm sure we've all known it to be. So I feel that this recent October shift of definition here to a real overt as something contrary to the mores of the group and the statement that the auditor technically is not interested in confidences or overts against a group's enemies or withholds thereof, I feel is a very serious things and serious point in terms of technical integrity. I feel that it will affect the case gain of PCs generally, because if people don't get off harmful actions, don't get off their harmful acts, they won't feel the relief and the betterment from having gotten them off or confessed them. And also I feel that the door is opened here to give license to people to commit harmful actions, provided they're considered okay by the person's current associates or whatever. And historically and philosophically, there are a tremendous number of precedents. In Islam, one of the cries in Islam was death to the infidel. And in a religious cause, people's heads were being lopped off and spears pushed through them and so on. At the same time, there were the Holy Crusades, in which, very righteously, knights were streaming down from England and Europe to do their version of putting death to what they considered infidels. I'm sure we could go on giving lots and lots of different examples. Every major war of a religious or holy nature has always been justified by the idea that it was okay to do harmful things to other people if they weren't part of your group. So anyway, just simply on the basis of decency and honesty, and perhaps more basically than anything else on the basis that the Thetan is basically good, I feel that this shift in definition and anything like it should be abhorred and not upheld. And the final note here would simply be an urging to you and to each one of us to maintain the purity of our religion and its doctrines and its technology, so that we can continue to set people free and not get involved in entrapment. Thank you.
If you should want additional copies of this taped lecture, or if you wish to communicate to David Mayo or anyone at the Advanced Ability Center, please write the AAC 1280 Coast Village Circle, Santa Barbara, California, 93108.